I was born in Frankfort, Kentucky, and raised on a farm out north of Frankfort. Attended Franklin County High School. Had a pretty typical childhood in that, mom, dad, two older sisters. Spent most of my summers and spare time helping my dad on the farm when I was old enough to do that, and played basketball as a child because that's the sport. Kind of always had an interest in math and science, and then kind of that led me into knowing that we were not a very well-off family, so they couldn't afford to send me to college, and that kind of led me to the Navy. Well, like I said, I knew I couldn't really afford to go to college, and really didn't like the jobs that were out there for, someone with absolutely no experience or education. And Frankfort, was pretty small, about 30 or 40,000 people, and then my little area of it's even smaller, and I just wanted to get out. That's really how I felt as 17, 18-year-old. Like, I gotta get out of here, find something new, and I wanted to see new places and do new things.
So why the Navy, and what led you to the military specifically instead of just picking up and moving somewhere else?
Well, mostly money. That they would provide me with money for my education, provide me place to live, and really just some kind of structure, because I was pretty structured in life as a teenager, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. I couldn't imagine just picking up and leaving and then not knowing anybody once I got there, or anything like that. I couldn't see myself staying with it and carrying through with things. So at least there, I would be driven to it. And just something about using nuclear power to drive ships kind of, I don't know, it interested me. I wanted to know how it worked. I was able to find out a friend of my family's was a submariner, electrician. He's been out for many years now, and I talked to him about it, and I think that's might be how I found out about the program initially, and what sparked my interest in it. I actually enlisted on October 31st of 2003.
Okay.
And
you had
began
a plan in place. You knew what you were going to do. Okay.
And I spent 11 months in what the Navy terms as their delayed entry program. So I waited around for my ship date because it's a Manning thing. They projected needing me as a nuclear operator, starting my training in September of 2004. And that just worked out that was my ship date, and it was, I had just about the whole summer after high school to kind of bum around and work on the farm some more, and kind of hang out and get ready to go. I felt a strong desire to want to help do my part, and and at that time, we were still, it seemed like every 2 or 3 months there was like, there could be another terrorist attack kind of thing, and now that's kind of fallen away. I'm not sure if it's because we've gotten complacent with it, or if maybe there's just not the threat is so much out there anymore. But I definitely felt a need or a desire to want to do my part. Graduated boot camp in November. I actually flew out that Sunday straight to Charleston, South Carolina, where the Navy has its nuclear propulsion training command, and began 9 months in Charleston. Well, I actually did both of my schools in Charleston. They break it up into 2 parts. You go through a rating school where they teach you, like they taught me, how to be a machinist mate or a mechanic. Here's a hammer, here's a wrench, kind of thing. And learned a lot about valves, pumps, heat exchangers, and that kind of thing. And then they get through that, and that's pretty tough. Ours is about 3 months. with some math in there, and you got to take a comprehensive exam at the end over everything you've had since day one, and you have to pass it, or you go somewhere else. You're not accepted to the program anymore. The power school they only start classes about once every 6 weeks or so. So there's usually some waiting time between when you finish A school and when you start power school. And but I started within like a week of getting back off of leave, and that's 24 weeks of they shove everything you could ever want to know about a nuclear propulsion plant down your throat and make you like it.
Oh, is this highly competitive between you and your classmates?
Absolutely. While there's no real reward for being first, it is made pretty well known that when you finally get, to fill out they call it the dream sheet for the orders you wanted, mm-hmm. coming out of your last school, that one of the things they look at for the selection is how you stacked up, in the class.
So how did this all play out for you?
I graduated third in my class in A school. I graduated in the top 25% of my power school class. I don't remember the number now. And then coming through prototype, I qualified. Prototype, which is our last school, is all based on, it's actually hands-on training. There's a full nuclear operating nuclear propulsion plant, 2 of them in New York, 2 of them in Charleston, and you get assigned to one of them, and they say, here, go get qualified. We're here to help. And there's a whole qualification process where you actually get qualified as an operator. And it is exactly mimicked. It mimics what you're going to see when you get to your first ship. I asked for 2 things on my dream sheet. One of them was a little earlier. I asked to go to another school, which was given up in Connecticut. It's a welding school for nuclear operators, and I got to go to that. And so I spent 3 weeks in Connecticut learning how to weld, which was actually a lot of fun, a lot of hands-on stuff. And then on my dream sheet, when I asked for my first submarine, I asked for a fast attack submarine, or a Los Angeles class, out of Norfolk, Virginia, which is exactly what they gave me. I get to Norfolk. One of the first things I find out when the ship sends me a welcome aboard package is that we're moving. So I'd asked for a fast attack out of Norfolk. I'd gotten it, but this particular fast attack had been slated for a change of home port, or to move its base to San Diego, California the following year. So they gave me what I wanted, but not really. But anyway, when I got there and checked in, my boat was actually slated to leave the next day. So they actually kept me in port to do submarine indoc and indoctrination to being, now you're in the fleet type thing. And, it was like a 4 or 5 day class. So we went through the check-in process. The boat was underway for like a month. So, I just kind of hung out and cleaned the barracks for the first month that I was in Norfolk. And then they came back and we met them on the pier. And the first time I saw the boat, she was kind of coming in. You watched her come in and pull up next to the pier, and we, tied her up next to the pier with, got her moored. And my supervisor comes up. His name, never forget him, Morris Hampton. And he says, hey man, what's going on? Hey, where's the new mechanic at? There's a bunch of us that stay behind. I'm like, here. He was like, oh, so yeah, welcome to the boat. Look, man, I got to go get the reactor shut down, and I want to go home and see my wife and my kid. So tell you what, come back tomorrow, 7:30. We'll deal with you then. How's that sound? Okay. Oh yeah. And he was like, oh yeah, get qualified, Nub. I was like, what? And Nub is the term all new submariners get. life on the boat's pretty simple. You're either qualified or you're not. If you're not qualified, you're behind in quals or delinquent. If you are qualified, then well, your life's not easy, but it's not terrible either. The first year, it takes about a year to get a guy, from the time he shows up to the time he's fully qualified, takes about a year, sometimes longer. And that first year's rough. It's kind of like, I would like to compare it to maybe, a freshman in college's first semester, only probably a lot worse.
You're pledging for your first year for the Navy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Submarine life is based around that favorite thing in the military. It's a routine. What we do when we go out to sea is most of it is training for the crew, just to be able to operate the boat at sea, because it's a lot of moving parts, a lot of and everybody is just one little wheel in the whole machine, and so it takes a certain number of hours a month or a quarter, however you want to break it down, at sea to actually stay proficient at operating the ship. In fact, for me to one of the things you have to, the ship's operated in shifts, and those shifts are called watches. So I had to qualify to stand watch on the propulsion plant. And by standing watch, I really mean to operate it, because it's the watch standers that operate the plant, or the ship really. The people who are operating the ship are the people that are on watch, and those are the only people at that time operating the ship. And everybody gets their turn. It'll be if you're not on watch right now, give it 6 hours, you will be.
Okay, so in your downtime, what are you doing between watch shifts?
Well, it depends. If you are not qualified, then you're getting qualified. And if you're found not getting qualified, you are strongly encouraged to work on your quals. Basically, the way the day breaks down is it's an 18-hour cycle. So there were 4 6-hour watches each day, based around basically starting at midnight to 6, 6 to 12, so on. You would stand a 6-hour watch, then you would have 6 hours of, we called it your off-going time, which was to do maintenance, to get qualified, to clean, to all the things that the watch standers can't do. Like a watch stander can't do maintenance, because that distracts from operating the plant, right? So most of the things that need to get done on a day-to-day basis that a watch stander can't do, the off-going guy does it. Also, if the on-watch guy needs to use the bathroom, the off-going guy has to come relieve him. And then the 6 hours immediately before your next watch is your own personal time, and most people use it to sleep. If you're qualified, then you can definitely sit down in your off-going and watch a movie. Nobody's gonna say anything to you. Typically, the only time we go on any kind of missions is when we're going on deployment. So when a submarine goes on deployment, we plan on being away from our home port for 6 months. Now, sometimes it goes longer than 6 months. My first deployment was a 7-month deployment. Another thing we do a lot is, or not a lot, but ever so often, is we actually take the boat out and we take it and do acoustic trials, where we measure noise levels that the boat puts out so that we know that it's quiet. Because if the machinery gets loud, they'll put the boat in the shipyard and fix it. Whatever's wrong, they'll fix it, because that's, the equipment is only allowed to be so loud, and if it's too loud, it's got to be fixed. Otherwise, we could be detected. And that we don't have any defenses. You see on the news and stuff, like the aircraft carriers and the surface ships, they got those radar controlled guns that can shoot down missiles, and they've got the air wing. Aircraft carriers got their air wing to protect them. The only thing we've got to protect ourselves is the fact that nobody knows where we are. or the people that do know where we are all on board the ship. So if we're making noise, a steady, discernible noise that another submarine or ship can use to track us, that's a safety risk. The thing about deploying ships is we usually know pretty well in advance when it's coming. It's more of a cycle type schedule, and so when I showed up in June or in July, I already knew we were leaving in February. That was something everybody knew, and everything we were doing was pushing towards having the boat certified and ready to go on that day. But some of the things you have to do in order to do that before we could leave, the engineering department had to be evaluated as being able to operate the reactor plant safely. So we had to go through, it's called an operational reactor safeguards exam. Now we do those every year, but we had to do this one. When I showed up to the ship, she had just spent 18 months getting overhauled. So 90% of the crew had 30, 40 days of operational experience on the boat. There were a few guys that had been around before the boat had went in for its overhaul that had some time before that, but even they were pretty rusty after doing maintenance and stuff for 18 months. So we had to pass this safeguards exam, and it was in September. The boat had just been returned to the fleet as operational in March. So it's about 6 months to get the department proficient at being able to operate the plant safely and prove to and it's very, very exacting standards. Another thing we had to do was, it's called a tactical readiness evaluation. So we had to prove that we could operate the ship as a warship. One of the biggest things with that is sound silencing, because like I was saying, if the equipment makes too much noise, they'll put it in the shipyard and fix it. If the crew makes too much noise, there's no quick and easy fix for that. So really, when you say a boat's quiet, you mean the crew is quiet. Because like something a lot of people don't think about, a toilet seat, for instance. Our toilets are hard bolted to the frame of the ship. A toilet seat that falls and slams shut back down will put sound off the ship out for about 10,000 yards. Just a very loud, a sonar tech that hears it definitely knows that's a submarine, and that goes out for 10,000 yards, which is half a mile. It led to a lot of late nights, a lot of what would be overtime in the real world. I think my typical work week for the 4 years I spent on the ship was 80 to 100 hours a week. On board, maintaining, and that's in port. That's not underway time. That's when we're next to our pier, sitting there just doing maintenance and getting the boat ready to go back out to sea. It was 80 to 100 hours. All the operations that go on in the Western Pacific are in Japan. They're in Yokosuka, and so we went there first, and that's when all the captain and everybody gets in briefed on what they're actually going to be doing. And we were there for a couple weeks just to fix some stuff and hang out and get some time off, because I think we'd spent about 30 days underway at this point just to get there. We found out that one of the other boats that was supposed to do an exercise with the Australian Navy had been diverted somewhere else, so they needed us. They were going to send us to go do this exercise with the Australian Navy, which also included a port called Australia, which was pretty cool, because that's where like everybody in the Navy says, if you ever get the chance to go to Australia, go. It's just one of those things. I don't know. Of course, when we got there, they had 4 or 5 cases of beer waiting for us on the pier, saying, "Hey, welcome to Australia. I know you guys have been underwater for a while. Have a beer." We were like, "Yes, this seems like the place." And that was a good time, and well-deserved little R&R for the crew. We'd gone out and done some spent a lot of time underway and done some things that needed to be done. And the rest of that deployment we spent just doing exercises with, we did the exercise with the Australian Navy, and I think we did an exercise with the Japanese Navy as well before we came on back. And then we came back home and to our new home, which was in San Diego, and that was pretty much the first deployment. Another one of my jobs as a watchstander, in the engine room is if we were going to be tracking a lot of contacts, or maybe one contact, one other ship, contacts or ships, just to kind of clarify that, or maybe one contact that we were really interested in, they would pull me and another guy, and not just me, but my watch station, which was engine room supervisor, because I wasn't required to ensure the safety of the plant. I just made the engine room run a little smoother. So they would pull like me and one of the other guys up, and we would go up into the control room and help the guys who were actually tracking targets, to help them manage tracking, either all these targets or this one or whatever the case may be. And I didn't have any real formal training for that. You just kind of picked it up as you went. They were like, well, you're a nuke, so you're smart, so figure this out. Oh, thanks. I didn't go seeking out my commanding officer over this one day, but he happened to be walking through the engine room, and he asked me how my day was going, and we were on station. And he had talked to me a little bit. He really, like most commanding officers, he wanted everybody to stay in. I'm sure if he could, convince them that was what they needed or what was best for them. And he asked me, why I didn't see myself staying in. And I explained that to him. I'm like, sir, it's hard to justify me being out here for months on end, not talking to, anybody, back home that I love and care about and stuff like that. And, and not really knowing what we're gaining out of it. I was like, that's really frustrating. And I was like, sir, I understand that's not your call to make. I understand that that's not all on your shoulders, and I'm probably better off that I don't know anything about it, but it still makes it frustrating, Makes it hard to stand back there and, read gauges for an hour, walk around reading gauges every hour, knowing that we're just here. Don't know why. It's not so much based on your rank as what you know. You know what I'm saying? If you know the plan, if you're experienced, if you've got the credentials to say, hey, I know what I'm talking about here, then people are going to listen to you pretty much regardless of what you wear on your collar, for the most part. Me as a really junior E5 have sat across from my commanding officer and said, hey sir, you're wrong about this. And we can look it up, but here's what I think you meant. And he would be like, yeah, you're right, I was wrong. And there was no hard feelings. He was actually glad that people would stand up and say, hey, this, what you said was not right. That's not how that's going to work.
Do you think that was acceptable because you guys are such a tight-knit group?
Two reasons. It's acceptable because we're a tight-knit group. Also, it's acceptable because that's the fundamentals that the submarine force, and especially the propulsion program, is built on. We were built on backing each other up, on checking each other, making sure that when some guy went to go turn a valve, that they turned the right valve, or if they were about to do the wrong thing, saying, hey, wait, man, that's the wrong switch, you're looking for the other one. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right, thanks. So we're fundamentally built around, we called it watch team backup. So we were a team, and there was no one guy that could wreck the team. There was no one guy that would make the team look great. We all had to do our job, and part of our job was to back each other up, and that went all up through the entire ship. But I think a lot of it led to the fact that life on the boat's not really life, at least not for me. I mean, I don't have a wife and kids right now. I think that's something I would like in my future. And I couldn't see looking at my wife and saying, hey, honey, I'll be back in 6 months, maybe 7. I understand, and if you don't hear from me for a few weeks, it'll be okay. It's just because we got to disappear for a little while. Tell my kids I love them, and then you come back and your kids don't know who you are anymore. You got to have that whole reacquaintance, reacquaint yourself with your own children, and I think part of it too is my dad, he owns and farms 200 acres of land, and he's getting a little older, and I felt like I should be a little closer so I could help him out when he needs it. And kind of what I talked about before, that whole, it's kind of like if you played basketball and all you ever did was practice. You never got to go out and play the game. All you did was practice. It's kind of how I felt about it. And it's tough to stay motivated in that kind of lifestyle, and the submarine force in general, and maybe it's the whole Navy, I don't know, but it seemed, what I experienced, we were an organization that was very driven around deficiencies, not around, hey man, you did a really good job figuring that out yesterday. Good job to you. Kudos. It's very much, hey man, I know you got this figured out, but you could have done it a little better and a little faster if maybe you thought of this. We can never say anything good about ourselves. We always have to say something bad about ourselves or how we could have been better at this. It's never good enough. And that gets very frustrating and very demoralizing very quickly when all you're ever told is how you could have been just a little bit better. Last time I was on the boat, it was not what I thought it would be when I walked off, because I left for the last time on a Friday, and we had just went through a pretty intensive maintenance period, getting the ship ready for its next deployment, which they left on in December of 2010, and I'd helped out all I could. I worked pretty much right up until the day I left. I was there supporting whatever I could do for them, and I left, and it was weird. It was kind of weird thinking, man, I'm never gonna set foot back there again, and but I got out, drove from San Diego back to Kentucky. It took me 4 or 5 days to do that, and that was a good little cooling off period, so to speak. Kind of get my thoughts together, get my head around the fact that, hey man, you're on leave, but you're not going back after this leave. It's not like this leave's gonna go by and you're gonna be like, man, where did that 2 weeks go? Crap, I gotta go back to the boat now. It's over. You start anew. And so that was good to have that kind of that time to get ready to move on. You know what I'm saying? And it was like October or November, and just didn't know what I was gonna do. And I was like, kept looking, kept kind of putting feelers out for jobs and stuff and applications, and not really hearing anything back or hearing that they weren't hiring. And I called up a good friend of mine from the boat, from the ship. His name's Ron Hatt, and he's the weapons officer there, so he's in charge of a department. And me and him had worked closely together. And I said, hey Ron, how are things going? And me and him talked for probably an hour, and he was like, Eric, you're an idiot if you don't go to college. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're a smart guy. I've seen you work. You're not going to be stressed out in college because, well, you've been on a submarine for 4 years. You'll make that. You'll be all right there. And he's like, there's just so many more doors will open up for you if you get your degree. And he was like, and take advantage of your GI Bill, and even if it doesn't pay for the the whole thing, you're still going to be way ahead of those 18 and 19-year-olds planning on taking out student loans to pay for their whole education. You might just pay for a year of it, or maybe if you're a slow kid, maybe 2. But go to college, go be a wildcat. That's what you told me you wanted to do at one point that you kind of wish you'd done. Go do it. And I don't know, it just kind of opened my eyes. And 2 days later, I was sitting in the Veterans Resource Center at UK filling out an application, and I met Mr. Dotson and kind of the whole organization there, and they've made my transition into UK a lot easier. It's because the thing that I find missing the most every day after being off the boat is the interaction with the people. Because some of the smartest, most dedicated people you'll ever work with are in submarines. And the Navy gives them a 50-pound bag of crap, 50 pounds of crap to shove in a 5-pound sock day in and day out, and they do it. And I don't know how they do it. I don't know how we did it, but we did. And I miss that. And I found a little bit of it at UK through the student veteran organization and through the transition course at UK and stuff like that. And that's probably the reason I'm coming back next semester, because if I hadn't found that social interaction, I probably would have said, yeah, this whole college thing's not for me. I don't fit in here. I think I'm more inclined to take in like a whole argument, everybody's perspective before I make up my mind about something. I think one thing I've gotten a lot better at is I listen and read people a lot better. I wasn't much of I didn't have a lot of people skills in high school. I didn't get along with a lot of people. I had a few close friends, but that was like it. And I think now, after you're kind of forced to learn some people skills after living with 140 people so close put together. So I think I'm more of a people person now than I was, and I'm more confident. I was a shy person before I went in the Navy. I was really shy, really reserved. Wasn't really afraid to sit in a class, wasn't really afraid to answer a question or to put an opinion out there. But at the same time, I wasn't the kind of kid that would walk up to the cute girl in the hall and say, hey, would you like to go to the movies on Friday either? And now I'm more of that person. I'm not going to say that I'm 100% there, but I'm definitely more of a person that will talk to people and is not afraid to talk to people and interact. I think a lot of it's time and stress management, because like I said, when you've got that 50 pounds of crap to shove in the 5-pound sock and they want you to do 9 weeks of work in 6, you get really good at managing your time, because you want to minimize the time on the ship, maximize the time on the beach, so to speak. And so that has directly transferred into being a college student, because I can sit down and kind of plan out, okay, so it's going to take me this long to do this, and kind of plan out my days and make sure I meet all the deadlines and stuff, and has made me smart enough to work in some fudge room too. If I say, hey, this assignment's due Friday, so I probably want to try to have it done Wednesday. That way if something comes up, I got a day or so to kind of play with. And the other thing too is stress management. I haven't been stressed all semester. I've heard people talking about, my classmates and stuff, oh man, we got finals coming up, or oh, we got a test tomorrow, and I don't know, I just don't stress out about it. I feel comfortable in my knowledge of the material and my ability to learn it. And it's not to say I don't take it seriously and I don't study, it just doesn't stress me out. on the boat, it was never about if one person did well. We all had to do well to do well. So, you know, there's definitely one of my classmates in my physics class. My test scores have gotten progressively better over the semester. Hers have gotten progressively worse. And I told her after the second exam, I look, if you need some help studying, you know, we can meet at the library or whatever, and I'll be glad to help you out. You know, if we help each other, we'll both do better. And never really responded, and we got our physics test back today, the last one before the final, and I missed 1 point on the part we got back today, and I think she missed like 10 or 12 or something, and she really stresses out about her grade, and I try to say, you know, hey, stressing out about it's not going to make it better. I try to help people manage their stress, try to give them help managing it, then get irritated with them. I wouldn't say it's underappreciated, because I get a lot of, really? How was that? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think a lot of people out there are genuinely curious about submarines, because you don't see us in the news a lot. We don't get a lot of high profile kind of stuff, because it's really hard to get a camera shot of a submarine at sea. You know what I'm saying? But just recently, if you look at when we began our support of the rebels in Libya, the centerpiece around the Navy's response was a nuclear-powered submarine. Mm-hmm. It was one of the guided missile submarines that I talked about earlier. So we're there, we do things, and people kind of hear about us, but I think it doesn't foster a lot of, well, you didn't really do anything. It fosters a lot of curiosity. And I accepted a long time ago that the only way anyone would ever know what I went through in the military would be to do it themselves. I'll always be proud of what I did for the Navy and the service I gave. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that I played a lead role or anything like that, but I did I did the job I was asked to do, that I said I would do, and I don't think that there's anybody should ever be ashamed of that. You know, and I met some good people along the way, and you know, did a job that I think most people are a little awed by, and kind of wonder how'd you do it. And you know, like I got friends that went to Iraq, were in combat, and you know, a few of them have been shot, and I'm like, man, I don't know how you did that. And they're like, what? I was like, you went over there and got shot. Like you went in the field, people shooting at you, and you were running towards the bullets. They're like, yeah. I was like, I don't know how you do it. They're like, dude, you went underwater. All right, don't talk to me about that. You're nuts. And that always gives me a little bit of pride, and at the same time a little bit, you know, that people are a little bit appreciative of the difficulty of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, now your service isn't completely over, right?
No, I'm still with the reserves. I elected to remain associated with it, or in the Navy Reserve, at least until this fall. Then I can make up my mind whether or not I want to re-enlist with the reserves or not. And it's kind of interesting with the reserves, because the job I did in the Navy doesn't really exist in the reserves. So I had to kind of pick a new job, similar, just not the whole nuclear thing. And I plan on going out to Virginia and working with Submarine Squadron 6 this fall as part of my 2 weeks of active duty. So I mean, I'm still interested in it, and my opinions of a lot of my opinions of being on submarines and the whole experience have mellowed a lot over the last 6 months. You know, I still remember a lot of the bad things, a lot of things I didn't like, but it's mellowed quite a bit. You know, I'm not as emotional about it as I was when I was there, because it was that day to day, you know, it was affecting your time off, you know. And when you show up to work at 7:30 in the morning expecting a pretty routine day, and it's, you know, at 9:30 that night they finally say, you know what, this is far enough for today, be back tomorrow. But tomorrow's Saturday. Yeah, be back tomorrow. Okay. Long term, I would earn my degree in mechanical engineering. Right now, I'm pretty sure I'd like to work, you know, around Lexington, one of the engineering firms in or around Lexington. I've given some thought to perhaps trying to go to work for the Navy as a civilian, doing maybe design or kind of like troubleshooting or something like that for the mechanical systems, especially the reactor systems, since I have quite a bit of familiarity with that already. But I guess one of the things I've taken away from submarine service too is we were always looking at the next event, the next thing, and right now the next event is get through finals, then get your degree, just keep moving in that direction and kind of piece the rest of it together as we go. It wasn't all good, it wasn't all bad, but I don't know if I don't know if I could go back and do it again, if I would, but I probably wouldn't give anything for the experience and anything for having done it. Because it's unique. It's a unique society. It's a unique group of people that do it, and it's a unique environment. And we got to take a lot of distinguished visitors underway for a day or so with us, and we would do summer cruises for the cadets, the Navy cadets, which are midshipmen, and all of them were just they were interested and a little almost a little dumbfounded by the things that we found to be just routine. And even now, after so long, when I hear a fire alarm go off in a building, I tend to start moving towards in the building, passing everyone else running out, and have to remember, wait a minute, no, the fire department will come and take care of this. This is not my problem. So it's definitely left a mark, and definitely is something that I overall I think it was good for me, and wouldn't give anything for it.